Hey guys, welcome to Project Metal Music's YouTube channel with your host Elion, and we are here with the brilliant Joel Ellis. So, welcome, Joel.
How you doing, Al? Thank you. Brilliant, huh? Okay. It's a little stretchy,
Uh,
but that's okay.
yeah, sorry guys for the delay. We had some tech issues to deal with. So, anyway, Joel, could you introduce yourself and what you do?
You, I need to turn up the volume here. So you said what you want me to explain what I do?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, I try to portray a rock star. no, okay. So I think what you're alluding to here, like, outside of singing and just having fun with music, you can't take it all too seriously, but you just got to do your best, right? You know.
yeah, yeah.
So
Cool.
something or other in here. These tech issues or something. It says, "Can you hear me? Is there?"
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a little woman in the corner of my screen saying, "We've got a problem with your connection." But
Yeah.
so yeah, yeah, as a touring artist, I mean, you reiterate. You mean in addition to what I'm known to do is
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. Well, I'm a writer. I write all my material, all of it. And I'm a producer. I tend to always have my nose in my hands in the records that I have done, and definitely, I believe real heavily in pre-production, primarily live. I mean, I'm a believer that before making a record, you go out and you beat it into shape on the stages, and then take it in the studio. Um, and so. But I'm getting into film. I've been getting my music placed in sync rights for film, and now I'm getting into editing. I'm actually right now, and this is where we're sitting. I've got an editing bay in my home, and so I've back in the day. I have just hundreds and hundreds of hours of VHS footage, just classic vintage stuff from the 80s, everything from backstage at on Sunset Strip and behind the scenes on the tour bus and up in the hills and the parties and the apartments. And there's a lot of rock stars in there, and we all look like kids. It's amazing now. But it follows the success of Cats and Boots, the video footage, like literally hundreds. I could show you. So, I mean, this is just one of the bins here, but it's just hundreds of hours of video footage, and this is just what's been digitized so far. And so I'm actually learning how to become a video editor, and so I guess I'll just put together the best scenes and clip them together, and you know let somebody fight a fight better than you can fight. So I'll get people to edit it, but I've got a lot of friends in the film industry who are supporting me and helping me, and just got a lot of great footage I think people are going to love. So out of the hundreds of hours that I do have, there's only so much that I can put into a rockumentary, which is going to be very entertaining, if anything, um, about the success of Cats and Boots in that period of time. I've got out of the small amount, the small percentage of clips that I'll be able to use for a rockumentary. The rest of it, I'm going to create a YouTube channel so I can literally put everything up there. And I guess I'll probably have to create one that's a parental advisory channel, and then the other that's but a lot of great rare footage as well. So I'll probably sync a lot of the live footage to make new music videos and create. So overall, there's going to be a great YouTube channel primarily dedicated to Cats and Boots, or at least the period of time that I had a camera with the crew, the Rodin crew. So yeah, that's my new venture. Yeah, outside of that, I mean, outside of music, I've done some very interesting things. I don't know if you really want to get into, but I've been responsible for creating clinical research studies for neuro patients and farming cannabis, and lobbying for the Medical Marijuana Act, which we introduced in Washington, that was signed off 2 years ago. So we allowed DEA researchers to be able to access strains of controlled substance marijuana for because they all have different properties for different diseases, and you've got two endocannabinoid systems. So I actually was invited to Israel, and I met Dr. Meshulam, who discovered THC, and Professor Lumer Hanosh, who discovered the endocannabinoid system and how they interact. And I met all those scientists over there. So we ended up going back, and I walked into Congress, and Congressman Blumenauer from Oregon, he was in the House of Reps, and he just gave us an immediate audience. And I said, stop calling it marijuana. He says, what am I supposed to call it? I said, call it clinical cannabis, and stop making it a political bureaucratic thing. Make it, base your arguments on clinical data. And he said, well, there are no scientists that can access it. And I said, precisely. That's why you need private sector researchers like myself, because I don't stand to lose it. And then all those guys that could stand to lose their medical license or research practicing degrees were my informal advisors. So, we did that. I did that for a few years, and we were very successful, at least in being able to get the Medical Marijuana Research Act passed, because my argument was that DEA researchers can't get their hands on it, but yet their kids can go to the corner and get whatever they want, So, so that was a little sidetrack outside of music. So,
Yeah.
so just give you an idea.
Yeah. So yeah, very informative that. Joel, let's dive into
You
some
asked the question. I
questions.
just answered it, Al.
Yeah. So as
Careful,
a
I'll blow you
kid,
big here.
yeah. So as a kid, what were you listening to, music wise?
Oh, you know what? That's a great question. I was pretty much an accident, until I was like 12. I believed my mother told me, like, oh, I didn't have you. The first man went up in space, poked a hole in the sky, and I just caught you when you fell. So, but I was born in '62, when John Glenn went up, but I had two older sisters, kind of hippies, but they were like, a decade older than me. So as a little kid, I remember my sisters as little girls, and they would run out with the quarter and go buy the latest Beatles 45 release, And I grew up all through the '60s, and growing up in Cleveland in the north, you had Detroit, Motor City, rock and roll, Motown. You had such an influx. My family, I was born into a musical family. My mother's father, my grandfather, was an opera singer, and he and my mother's mother, my grandmother, they were both performing theatrical artists. My grandfather was well known in Eastern Europe and Hungary for his portrayal of Pagliacci, and and then there was music on both sides of my family, and I grew up in a very musical household. We always had a great stereo in the front room, and when my parents weren't home, they were working, and I was home from school, I'd take the speakers and put them on the front porch there and just blast Aerosmith records. But yeah, I grew up being influenced by everything. My sisters went through the whole phases of music in the '60s. The British invasion. Mom and Dad grew up in the '50s, 40s, and '50s, and so they brought that whole bulk of Rat Pack to Elvis. And my dad was big into country artists, like the real ones, like Johnny Cash and just Merle Haggard, all the good ones, Marty Robbins. But so I had this minestrone of music coming at me as I was a little kid growing up, and and I was pretty perceptive of it. A couple of memories that come back to me was I remember my friends and I, we were very rebellious, and so we kept little AM radios, and we would hide them under our pillows. And so our parents would go to sleep at night. We'd turn on Wixie 1260. This was before FM radio. And then in the morning, we'd meet for school and go, what songs did you hear? Oh, yeah, it was this, And then FM radio came around. And so my father had bought a car that had one of the first FM stereos in it. And when I was really introduced to heavy rock and roll, it rattled my soul in a way that was pretty incredible. So that's kind of, we were a church going family, so every Sunday, man, it was a pain in the ass. You had to get up and get on your best clothes and go to church. And I was always stuck in the back seat between my two older sisters. Well, you know, we were leaving church and he goes, let's see what this FM music is about. And he clicks it on and he starts flipping through the channels and then he hits WMMS. And he turned it in, and it just happened to be during Deep Purple's Child in Time. And it was the part where, it was at the part where he's just singing, Wah! He's screaming. And my mom says, Joe, what is that? He says, I think it's a cat with its tail caught in a lawnmower. And but for me, it hit home and resonated like, this is my calling, And so, yeah, Child in Time was the first and one of my favorites to this day. But so it kind of all started from there. And but my sisters, they were really into a lot of things, everything from, in the beginning, it was a lot of Beatles, and then it became like the James Taylor, Elton John stuff. And so I was like really in tune with all of that, Cat Stevens, Carole King, all that, but didn't really scratch the itch until my sister, like I said, they were always having to babysit me. So it was like they dragged me everywhere, whether it be a concert or a party or whatever it is. And if you tell mom and dad, we're going to murder you, bury you under the cherry tree, so I probably didn't care. Right. But I distinctly remember, like when they were talking about, let's go over there. They're all smoking pot. And I imagined in my head, pots and pans from Sesame Street. And so it never really dawned on me. So I grew up as a kid, used to the smell of weed. And then, it's like you hear about the Doors, the Doors are playing, downtown, and you're at a Doors concert and you're a little kid, so the whole experience is a hot, muggy room that smells like ass crack and weed, and you imagine these Doors bouncing around on stage, and so going back from those memories coming up, and that the same natural feeling inside of me took place when when I heard Motown soul and Marvin Gaye and Sam Cooke and a lot of the, and then you start getting into like the funky, bands, the Ohio Players and Parliament Funkadelic and Bootsy Collins, hey Boots, actually Boots and Patty, great people. But that kind of stuff gets into you. The Dazz Band, they were from Cleveland, the Kinsman Dazz, so all of that funk, the Isley Brothers, and that whole heavy beat, that felt to me like if you listen to the old Isley Brothers, that to me was it was more or less like heavy metal to me, those heavy grooves, and, fight to power, that was heavy to me. That was great. And I really thought that was heavy until I heard Black Sabbath, and then I was like, oh, wow, okay, this isn't really funky, but this is taking me a different place. And I remember when my sister was, she was a hippie with her hip huggers and bell bottoms, listening to Steppenwolf. And so as a little kid, I was also introduced to, goddamn the Pusher Man. I was introduced to Steppenwolf and Jimi Hendrix and the Doors and Janis Joplin. It was like, but the thing that I really found, there were a lot of like one hit wonders, bands like the Turtles and, there were so many great artists towards the mid to late 60s, and it really inspired me, and the twist the Beatles took. And it opened my mind, I think, to a lot of progressive music. And I really started getting into bands like Yes. I mean, Yes to this day, one of my favorites. And, as the universe would have it, when I moved to Hollywood, I got Chris Squire and the band Yes were one of my favorite, they were one of my good friends right off the bat. Chris, until the day he died, we were close, and it's just such a privilege because, it's a standing epitaph towards manifestation. I mean, if you are drawn to music as a kid, and you have this very cathartic connection with the performers, and you tend to manifest that. And I remember, being in church when a little kid, and I was praying. I'm like, God, I want to be a rock and roll star. And a beam of light literally came through a window and hit me, and I knew I was going to. And so as I got a little older, my friends and I, during the '70s, we would go and sneak into every concert. We had every concert hall mapped out. We knew where the fire exits were, which windows you can kick out, which walls you could climb. And so we literally became very close to the music in a sense that we physically made ourselves a part of it. So we'd go as a group of kids, and we'd break in any way possible. We'd jump over the security wall, outrun the cops, learn how to rig the fire escapes to go in backwards and come down. But by the end of the concert, no matter what, I grew up with a pretty rough group of kids, but group of guys. But if you weren't up against the stage, then you got beat down. So you had to do it. So we had all these different ways of, we'd hop chairs to get over it and duck down, and then distract the guard and hop over the wall and shoot in, and you're ready, man. You were ready. You were ready to get it. And in the '70s, you didn't wait. People didn't wait until the end of the concert to go to the front of the stage. It was like by the third or fourth song, it was packed up against the stage. And this was before they put those big barriers. And so I actually saw amazing bands. Some of my best memories, Queen. I saw Queen on the News of the World tour, and actually, Freddie. We kept holding on to Freddie's foot every time he'd come over. Everybody would grab his feet, and it was just amazing. I remember being up against the stage for Genesis and hearing the very first wall of MIDI, sub lows. It was so loud, the sound coming off the stage, that it's just things that you'll never forget, like being up against the stage and you're used to hearing, the bass player's over there and the guitar and blah, blah, blah. But I'll never forget the Genesis Seconds Out tour, right up against the stage. And when they opened with Squonk, and that first low note, that doom, 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 and then that doom, 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 it literally blew our hair back. And it was almost like it blew away everything we ever knew about music, and just said, it can be like this. And so it just, as technology and music progressed, and as the artistry and those bands that were innovating, they back then, the best, most schooled, experienced artists, they're the ones that really changed music. I mean, you got Jimmy Page, who was a session guitarist from country music to to Zeppelin. I mean, he was schooled. All these guys, and their influences were so diverse. It was like, I remember, Chris Squire told me that he and John Anderson met, and they had a common love for Simon and Garfunkel. And go figure, right? Nowadays you put Simon Garfunkel up there, on your Facebook page if you're a metal artist, and you get like one or two hits, but put up a Sabbath video and you get hundreds. But the thing of it is, you realize that bands like this were influenced by so much classical music, heavy, Zeppelin from the blues, but it was an eclectic influence. But if you listen to the harmonies in Yes, you're going to hear Simon and Garfunkel harmonies,
Yeah.
and it's pretty mind blowing.
Yeah, yeah, it is. We've got a question from Rhea Snakespeare. She asks, uh, "Do you write music and lyrics? If so, which comes first or easiest?"
Okay, so I do play instruments. The reason I became a singer was so I didn't get kicked out of the band for being the worst guitarist, But I do come up with ideas on the guitar. I play about as much guitar as Mick Jagger, and same thing goes for like piano and other things. I've mastered the blues harp, but in terms of music, I'll come up with ideas mainly in my head. So I really kind of I mean this in a, I mean this in a good way that I tend to use my guitarists as writing tools. Again, you can't, don't fight a fight. Someone else can fight better for you. But my ideas far surpass, my abilities. And so I like to work with guitarists who can mind melt, is what I call it, can mind melt with me. And, I I've had guys, make jokes, all the time that I work with is like, he'll say, make it sound like a dark forest and, then there's, fire coming down, whatever, the sound of the stars crashing on Earth or whatever it is. I mean, so I'll come up with these things and then they'll have to, and then we'll work together. And I usually get melodies in my heads or I'll take, and just hum it out until we beat a melody into shape. And 9 times out of 10, I'll go back after the music is written. I may come up with a hook line, kind of similar like the Beatles Yesterday started off as scrambled eggs, right? But you just do that. So I think the primary thing first is to fit my voice melodies into the groove of the song. And from there, you craft the lyrics. I like to take what we've got as a rough sketch, and then I like to go hide away somewhere, and I'll let the stream of consciousness come to me and start putting together words, and then kind of take a direction, that way. So I would have to say, to answer your question, that yes, I craft music, or I'll take riffs. Like Ohashi would always, in Cats and Boots, he would always come up with pretty much the whole song, and then all we'd have to do was I would just feel what had inspired me, what was happening in my life at the time. Cats and Boots was very reflective of life for me and for us. At the time, Heavy Bones was more conceptual, where you take reality and metaphysical and blend it. So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. Cool. We also got another question from one of our moderators, Aussie Ann 2025. She asks, would you travel abroad, i.e. Australia?
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah. Would love to. I've always wanted to come down to Australia. I've always had like tangents, with Australia. Mark Opitz, he was the producer for Cats and Boots Kicked and Clawed. Now, Mark, he worked with Jimmy Barnes for years, and then he produced the AC/DC Highway to Hell record. And he also did the In Excess, the Shabu Shaba record, which is one of my favorite records of all time. And yeah, I just have so many friends down in Australia, and I've always wanted to go down. But maybe that day will come. I think, I know that, we've had poor managers. We had greedy managers. I was always getting too much money, and I think money ultimately corrupts. But the managers I've had for Cats and Boots, Stan Poses. He's actually mentioned in that Netflix thing, the Mensch, that documentary. But Stan's old school. He worked up through Janis Joplin and Alice Cooper all the way up. So, you would think that a guy like that would have a sense of what it takes to break an artist and have them tour, in different places. Well, the EMI contract was pretty amazing. Frank Zappa was the one that landed us that contract when our record went #1 in Japan before we even got back to the States. And all of that was laid out really well. So we had EMI Manhattan in New York we were with, and then EMI Thorn in the UK, and EMI Toshiba in Japan. So it made logical sense for the label to send us right back to Japan to follow up on our #1 indie record. And boom, we exploded in Japan. Top 3 record of the year, behind Prince's Batman and the Rolling Stones' Steel Wheels. That record went to #1 and came down to #3 for that entire year of '89. In the UK, we were top 10 with Cats and Boots, Clicked and Clawed. So it would have made sense. But at some point in time, the manager, while we're so busy, he's using the budget for other things. And then when Vince and Tommy and the guys in Motley were going out on the girls, Vince was like, he's like, man, you're my favorite singer. And we listened to Kicked and Clawed before we go on stage to get us pumped up. And so they invited us to go out with them on the girls tour. And that would have taken us obviously into every corner of the world. And but we found out that our manager had spent our tour support. So we fired him. Then we didn't have a manager, and EMI lost our A&R guy. And so that's one reason why we never got down to Australia, And with Cats and Boots, or with Heavy Bones, we just had a manager that kind of premeditatively just took his 20% and had us millions of dollars. And it was just kind of sad because, I mean, you would think that any manager with common sense would have, taken my next solo record that I've got this great new band with Frankie Bonelli, and Quiet Riot was big in Japan, and Cats and Boots was huge in Japan. So why not send us back to Japan, And but we went to Hawaii. We did shows there, and we got back to LA. We did 3 nights at the Troubadour, sold out. And then we left to go on tour, and the manager was nowhere around, and our tour support was gone. And he was surfing in Tobago, and they changed the cover of the record, and it was like, oh God. So that's kind of the demise of both bands. Really had a lot to do with management and the timing therein. But to answer your question, yeah, I would love to come to Australia, and invite us down, set it up. We'll be there.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, Ozzy, have you got any contacts down there? Please set her up. Yes, good thing. We've got a question from Christina Avila. Hey, Chris. Thank you for setting up this interview.
Yeah,
Much appreciated.
Christine. She's my new she's one of my new publicist, and I give her a lot of credit. She's a go-getter. She's out there beating down college radio stations and rock shows. But yeah, thanks Christina for getting me in with Al. He's the man.
Yeah, cool. She asked, I don't know if you, she asked, was your music ever in the Library of Congress for copyright reasons?
Oh, all of it. Yeah, all of it. All of it. It's all got to be copywritten. You gotta do that.
Yeah.
There's Is she an artist looking to? Is she asking questions about whether or not it's?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a smart thing to do.
yeah, yeah. Cool. Thank you for that, Christina. Yep. So, um, going on to you becoming a singer, who out of all the bands that you've witnessed at their gigs as a kid, listening to all the stuff that your family sort of introduced you to, out of all of them, who said, oh, who actually out of those bands inspired you to become a musician to actually sing?
Um, can you? I kind of lost track of the question there. What was it?
Who out of all the bands that you heard over the years as growing up as a kid, who actually inspired you to become a singer?
Oh, great. Yeah. Well, okay. So yeah, twofold. At home on the record player, the song that really uh, sparked my fascination with singing was a song on the Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon record. It was called A Great Gig in Time, and A Great Gig in the Sky, I'm sorry. And it's a little tiny, short little blonde haired lady named Claire Torrey. And they called her in, and just sing whatever you want over this piano track. And later I came to find out, once I started, learning vocals and the voice, that that little girl, it just spontaneously, okay, um, that she actually goes through every register, breath control registers of the human voice, and she hits just pretty much the entire scale. And so I didn't realize then, but I do realize now that what inspired me was, how the voice wasn't. That's what introduced me to the voice actually being an instrument, and how intricate it was, and so that inspired me. But and of course, uh, you know, there was being at the concerts. I mean, of course, every kid is inspired by Robert Plant and things like that. And but as a vocalist, I was fascinated with Janis Joplin's voice. And I just thought Jimi Hendrix was a great singer. I think his singing's underrated, but I really liked the way that Jimmy curved a lot of blues into rock and roll. And I noticed even as a kid, because my mother would listen to Billie Holiday and Sarah Vaughan things. So Billie Holiday was always fascinating to me because I could always figure out how does she sing so damn slow, but she stays on the beat. And so that really kind of got me into jazz singing as well. So you learn how to sing behind the beat, and it's more of a feel. And that's where, as a vocalist, you start to become more of an artist than a musician, because you're not just learning the mechanics, but you're actually learning how to put your soul and your spirit into your voice, and to not think about it so much, but just to express it from inside. And then being at concerts, I was really, that's where my heaviest influences came. As a performer, I had some great examples. I mean, I sat, within arm's reach of Freddie Mercury as a kid. One of my favorite performances, I never missed a Jay Giles show. The Jay Giles band, Peter Wolf, up front. And one of the most impactful concerts that I went to, one of the greatest frontmen that I've ever seen was Bob Seger. And I saw him as a kid, and I can't remember if it was up at Cobo Hall, because we used to go up there for concerts, or if it was here at Public Hall in Cleveland. Um, I remember being up against the stage and just being in complete and total awe of this guy. He was just standing there with his bell-bottom jeans and his long black hair, and the way he just commanded the audience with the microphone, and he was grooving to it, and he had a lot of soul. Bob Seger, coming from out of Detroit, this guy had a lot of soul. He had a lot of Wilson Pickett, just a lot of great, and just, so I just looked at it and said, like, wow, that guy, is the guy I want to be. And I think a lot of Bob Seger, a lot of Peter Wolf, things like that transcended. Vocally, I have to honestly say that two of my biggest influences were Steve Marriott from the Small Faces, Humble Pie, and oh boy, just had a little brain fart. So, but Dan McCafferty of Nazareth, and so yeah, I was real lucky to actually see those guys right up close too. But Steve Marriott he was amazing. He sings a song called Black Coffee. And basically, he's saying, he goes, yeah, I'm just a black. I'm a black boy in the body of a white boy. But he had so much soul in his voice, and so guys like that, I could see they were really innovating my perspective as an artist and a performer, and so in order to hone my voice, I just Cleveland was loaded with places to play live, and I wasn't old enough to get into these clubs to perform, so the guys would always sneak me in through the back alley, and then I'd come in just to get on stage and sing. But it was always shitty sound systems, shitty monitors, and it still goes on. I remember being with Robert Plant after one of his shows at Universal Amphitheater. I was so blown away by his performance. I got backstage and we're back in the dressing room, and he comes out and he just says, "Yeah, well, the damn monitors! I couldn't hear anything because of the monitors." Now we all have these little cans we put in our ears. But I grew up with that scenario where I could never hear myself, so I was just screaming my balls off, man, every night. And and then afterwards, obviously, you wash down, you wash down the set with some good whiskey, and then the vocal cords start to form, in order to be Joel Ellis. but um, but yeah, I mean, I the way that I formed my voice was I literally beat the hell out of my vocal cords, expressed my influences, and just again, it's that manifestation where you want your voice to go somewhere, you want to make a certain sound, and so your body will accommodate you if you just visualize it. And I think that's a lot of what happened is I just pushed my voice to the limit constantly, and then when I went into Heavy Bones, um, I had a few people that started talking to me. Jack Russell of Great White has always been a very close friend, rest his soul. But and Jack was always very serious about the voice, um, and so we would always trade notes on the voice. And we were opening for Ronnie James Dio at Pacific Amphitheater, and I had a chance to actually, Jack and I were warming our voice up, and Ronnie came over, and we were talking a little bit. He actually, before I went out, I was kind of nervous, and I said, Jesus, I said, I've never played in front of 30,000 people before. This was back in '87. He goes, you're nervous? Okay. He goes, I'm going to call the board and have them give you the full Ronnie mix. And he did. He went and he called the board and he says, I want Joel to have the same settings as I have when I sing. And then Jack was like, holy shit. He goes, how do you rate? And then Ronnie comes back and he says, since you're using my mix, you may as well use my microphone. And he pulls out this gold plated, and and Jack was just like, you fucker, man, because we would tease each other, as like, yeah, I used your records to warm up, So, but Jack and I were brothers to the end. But I went out there on stage and sang through Ronnie's mix, and all the vocal training just goes away, and it's just you just have this connection of energy with the audience, and singing through his setup, it just blew my mind how much the voice could be put under a microscope when it's amplified and processed like that. And it just gave me a whole newfound respect for Ronnie, because that man, wow, one of the greatest voices in rock history, just amazing, and one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. Just a sweet guy. But as you meet people along the way, and Jack referred me over to a vocal instructor named Ron Anderson, and Ron was the vocal coach for the New York Metropolitan Opera, and I started working with him, and he was like, "Oh my God," he goes, "I don't know how you do half the things you do with your voice. Most people, they would have no voice by now." And I said, yeah, I don't know. It's just beat the hell out of him in the Cleveland nightclubs as a kid. But so I had a lot of great pipes and muscle control to start with. But then he led me through the type of training. Jack had gone through it. You can hear it in his voice, the beautiful glassy, high delivery. So I started doing that. And I started bouncing around different vocal coaches to kind of diversify the training and that. And Rod Stewart was going to a Jewish cantor up on Mulholland named Nate Lamb. So I started going there, and I remember talking to James Hetfield at one night at the Rainbow, and telling him, like, he was, get a vocal. I don't remember how the conversation went, but I referred him over to Nate Lamb. So Nate worked with him before they did the Metallica 1 record. And so you can hear day and night. You can hear Kill 'Em All, Let God Sort 'Em Out, and then you can hear, The Unforgiven. You hear the difference in the voice. And Ron actually wanted me to switch to sing at the Metropolitan Opera in New York. And I was like, yeah, I don't have time. I don't have time. I got to get on a tour. But, I did at some point have an opportunity to split the intersection and go to perform opera, but it just wasn't my thing, man.
We've got another question from Rhea Snakespeare. She asks, you mentioned classical music earlier. Do you listen to it? And if so, what do you listen to?
I absolutely listen to classical music. I actually meditate to classical music when I just feel like life is. Classical music is. I really believe in the frequencies and the tonality and everything in classical music. I listen to a lot of Bach. I like Mozart. I like Bach more. I like I like Bach's Bromberg concertos. It's really great, and that's the one that has his composition is my most famous, which is my favorite classical composition. It's called Air. It's ironically Air on the G string, um, which I'm familiar with, and um, and so the Bromberg concertos are great. I also like Mozart's Ein klein Nachtmusik, and it's funny because there's a song in there called "The Queen of the Night," and it has some of the highest registers. I think it's like an F sharp above, high C or something. But Ron Anderson trained me for that because he said you have such a high register. He said we got to beef it up. So that's where a lot of the high notes came in on the Heavy Bones record, was because he had me singing Queen of the Night. Okay, I'm probably going to embarrass myself here, but uh, the scale that he had me hitting, full full breath delivery was the part where she goes, and that's all I'm going to do. But I used to do it really well, and it's not something that you're going to see, Axl Rose or Vince Neil get on stage and do. But again, it's a way to stretch the vocal, and then you get out on stage and you take that ability to be able to hit those operatic notes, and then you blend in all that grit and grind, that sounds like the grizzly bear within, and then you end up with a lot of those screams, like the screams on her monkey, and that was pre vocal lessons. Um, but then you get into Heavy Bones, and then you start getting into some of those long delivery notes, like in the Heavy Bones song "Your Love Won't Let Me Down." That's breath control, where you can just lift a note out of the solo and just carry it and carry it. And it's kind of like a Robert Plant influence, to where he would do you know, all that kind of stuff. So, that's how my influence kind of interwoven there. But if you listen to songs like on Kicked and Clawed, you'll hear songs like Long, Long Way from Home. Again, coming out of the solo, I do the part where I hit that enormously long. I think it's like 3 or 4 measures long, just a note that just goes forever. And it goes half the song, while the song's resolving out of the bridge, and so in terms of classical music, I mean, it's always a part. It's always a part of my life. And there's times, when I'll be in the mood to just, throw on, you know, just some opera, like go on Pandora and flip in Madame Butterfly or whatever, and just let it play in the background, because I believe that your subconscious mind pulls it up. And there's times, like I said, where you meditate to classical music, where you can actually feel it. You can actually feel it, going through parts of your mind, your psyche, your whatever it is, your neurons. But I think it's really critical for people. I don't care if you're a diehard Motorhead fan. Listen. Music is music. Music is magic. There's so many different kinds. Um, there's something on YouTube that you can pull up. It's called Bliss Coded Sound, and some people, like binary beats or whatever. But I mean, if you sit back and just let yourself go, you let yourself go into these, you can actually feel the frequencies massaging, more or less, or resonating in different parts of your brain, your mind. So
Cool,
yeah, I like classical music.
cool, cool. Uh, we also got another question from Lisaboo, and she asks, "What is your favorite song to play,
What's my favorite song
to sing?"
of mine?
Yeah.
You know, I'm not sure I could quite sing it the same way I used to, but Every Sunrise, Cats and Boots song Every Sunrise is one of my favorites. Um, I, I love singing Her Monkey. I love cat. As far as Cats and Boots goes, I would probably say those are my two favorite. Um, that one, and I especially like Whip It Out. I think Whip It Out on the Cats and Boots record is such an underrated song. But I wrote that one hanging out with Adriana Smith. The lyrics, we were hanging out listening to Tom Waits records and chilling, and it was like 3 or 4 in the morning. But I wrote "Whip It Out" and "Every Sunrise" in the same night. And Adriana Smith, you probably remember, she actually wrote a lot of the lyrics for the first Guns N' Roses record. She was always rhyming, take me down to the paradise city with the grass. That's Adriana, and saying like, your bitch slap rapping and your cocaine tongue, you get nothing done, that kind of a thing. And she would come over the house and she'd be like, Joel. She goes, you'll never be a paper rose or the owner of a lonely telephone, And so I was like, oh, that's a good lyric, We started Whip It Out, and but those off Cats and Boots are my favorite. Um, in terms of Heavy Bones, Your Love Won't Let Me Down, and Summers in the Rain. I highly recommend listening to the version of Summers in the Rain, the original demo, off of the new record, the Real Heavy Bones Volume 1, as a bonus track. It's a demo. It's the demo version, and it's got a lot of magic in it. It's nothing like the version that got stripped of its character on the Warner Brothers debut. Summers in the Rain off the Warner release is, to me, it's just washed out. It doesn't do anything. But if you go back and you listen to the new release, or go to my website, joelellismusic.com, and you get in there and you listen to Summers in the Rain, the demo version, I think it'll really give you insight as to what the Heavy Bones record was intended to be. If you A/B the two versions. Um, you know, um, yeah, I mean, 4 TM is all. It's a great one too, but those choruses are, I don't know, they're a little dated for me. I mean, I like to be a little bluesier singer now, so those are my favorites. Your Love Won't Let Me Down, Summers in the Rain, and then Every Sunrise, Your Monkey, and Whip It Out.
Cool, cool. So you mentioned a couple of bands that you've been in. Were there any other bands that you were sort of like starting out back in high school?
Well, yeah, in high school, yeah. I mean, I started I started giving little concerts for my friends in their house with just a guitar and about 90 different psychedelic pedals, big muffs and wah pedals and all that, with flashing, colored lights. While they were all getting stoned, I'd be playing, Robin Trower type stuff. And then it progressed into getting into a garage band, and then a party band, and then a high school band, um, and then Mary Hoax was actually the band that I was in. And I found a cassette tape the other day of a battle of the bands we did at one of the high schools, and it's just crazy because we had our road crew bring in these enormous stacks, and we had all this amps and everything. We had a road crew and lights, and we did a battle of the bands, and there were these kids that just came in with their instruments. They had these little garage bands, and looking back on it, I kind of feel bad, but we just blew them away, and so that band got a lot of attention. And when I left and went to LA, a couple of years later, they followed me out to Hollywood, and we got together and started writing all new songs for a record. And then before you know it, within a couple of months, we were signed to Atlantic Records. So Mary Hoax is a band I think is just really something. My guitarist Denny, rest his soul, he was really had a lot of accolades from everybody. Like Dweezil Zappa contacted us, and that ensued a lifelong friendship with the Zappa family. And they had respect for Denny. Warren DeMartini from Rat. He was always, George Lynch. All the guys, they just really had a lot of respect for Denny as a guitarist because he was very unique. So I would highly recommend listening. You can get on my website listening to the band Mary Hoax on Atlantic Records. And then the guys got into heroin and I didn't. So I left and I started bouncing around. Dweezil Zappa and I actually we had a cover band, and so we would go and play the clubs around, but we would just do weird stuff. Like we'd play Four Sticks by Zeppelin, and then right after it we'd play Jesse's Girl. It's just crazy stuff, but we played a lot of his dad's music, Dirty Love and all that. And then I had a couple of things that I dabbled in, with other bandmates, and then Rough Cut recruited me to fill in after Paul Shortino left, and it was a great setup. It really was. I mean, they're a phenomenal band, with Amir on guitar, and David Alford, and we were actually rehearsing our set to open for Ronnie James Dio, and so we were in there rehearsing, and Tawn Masteries from KNAC, the Leather Nun, she called our rehearsal room, had one of those telephones. And Dave answered the phone. He's from Shreveport, Louisiana. He's like, "Hey, Tawn." And he says, I can't pronounce your lead singer's, name because, Ellis isn't my name. So my last name is Gardos, is a Hungarian, Hungarian gypsy. And so he's like, "All right, Joel, we got to get you a cool name. His Tom can't pronounce her name." And so the guys in the band are all shouting, Joey St. Pierre, nah, Joey Stark, nah, this and that. So he's like, Joel Ellis, how's that? And I go, "That's good enough." And so he said, "Tom, our new lead singer's name is Joel Ellis." And so she announced it on KNAC, and that's stuck forever. So I did. I joined a lot of bands. I've had a lot of offers, to join other bands, and I'm just not the kind of artist to fill in any other singer's shoes. I don't think I'm that good of a musician. I can't lie. I couldn't be a used car salesman, and I couldn't be a paid witness. I'm just not good at lying, and so I just think that by getting up and filling someone else's shoes in a band would, it's just, I would be doing myself a disgrace. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like when I perform on stage, it's kind of the way that I cook in the kitchen. I don't really exactly know how it's going to come out or what's going on, but I just do it by feel, and I feel the audience. I play off the audience as if we were an instrument, and we really lock into a single energy. So, yeah, that's why the Japan shows are so notoriously off the hook. We broke down social boundaries there. Any other bands? I mean, I've had offers. Howard Leese, he wanted me to talk to the guys in Loverboy. Like, oh, they need a singer. Couldn't do it. Warrant. I mean, I was invited to do that. There's different things. I think the one offer that I would have taken was, Eddie Van Halen and I spent a lot of time together, and he actually really dug my voice, and we were good friends, and he wanted me to come into Van Halen. I was already on Warner Brothers, I think, at the time, or EMI, but yeah, no, they Valerie and the guys, they blocked that because Eddie and I were too toxic together. But I would have absolutely, at the drop of a hat, gone into Van Halen. Eddie was magical, and I think that would have been my motivation. Would have been to be with a band that is so close knit from the time that they were kids, and the blood between the brothers, and Eddie being who he was. Even if he hadn't have been so great on the guitar, he was just a beautiful soul. He really was. There's a lot of times, people want to ask, or they want to talk about, the heavy, partying and drug use and everything from a lot of these bands, especially Van Halen. But it's like you got to look past that, man. You got to look past that into into the artist's heart and soul, and so it's fortunate that they didn't allow Eddie and I to go on tour because we'd probably been dead in 3 months together. It wasn't good,
Mm.
but no, I really enjoyed all the experiences that I had as and all the different musicians that I worked with coming up through. There's dozens more I could name, but yeah.
So, what have you been up to, especially in the last 12 months?
Yeah, so I've been producing the Real Heavy Bones. I produced that record. Those songs are out, and I'm really proud of that. Even though it's not new music, you know, it's allowed me to really dive in deep to become a producer and to see really test my production skills. And I think I did a tremendous job because what I did was I resurrected the a lot of fans have always asked for more Heavy Bones. We really did. We were together and we were dispersed so quickly, and it was because of a very malicious type manager who had different motivation, and so the band kind of disintegrated because there was for one reason or another. Let me just say, but yeah, that one just kind of. Go ahead and give me that question again. I want to make sure I answer it right.
What have you been up to in the last 12 months?
Yeah. Okay. So, all right, there we go. So what I did was, as the fans, we had so much. So the band broke up quick, but we had prior to that, we were kept in the studio just continuously. Give us more songs. Give us more songs. So we wrote like 60 songs, and I had a Tascam 388 quarter-inch tape machine with 8 different tracks, and so we used up 4 of those. Those tracks. I mean, right away we put a mic above Frankie's drum kit, a mic in his kick drum, a mic on the, and these were shitty mics, Shure 57s or whatever. One on the bass, one on the guitar amp, and we recorded the music. And then I had the vocal, so that's 5 tracks, right? And then we used 3 extra tracks to put whatever we wanted in there, the guitar solo, and the background vocals or anything like that. And so we had these raw rehearsal tapes that we actually recorded. So this record is comprised of old demos that were never intended to be released. And they were on tape that had been in my attic for decades, couple 20, 30 years maybe. But when Warner Brothers started calling me to reissue the record, I said, I'm not going to do it unless we change that shitty album cover art, and I want to be able to add bonus tracks and press it to vinyl. And then, at first, they were very accommodating, and but then I started digging for those tapes to say, okay, well, I'm going to put some bonus tracks on it. And so I went through the whole process of seeking out that machine, finding exactly the right machine to play the tapes, dialing it in, having all my master tapes digitized. And then I found a studio here in Ohio. It's just amazing. My friend Mike Jaworski, he hand built his own studio, and you could pick it up and drop it in Hollywood, and you wouldn't miss a beat. But he's brilliant. He's a brilliant Pro Tools guy. So we went in, and I only intended to just lift a few of those songs and stick them on the record for Warner Brothers. And then he went and ruined that because he was a fan of Frankie Banelli's, and he started perfecting. He started isolating the noise and everything, and we started enhancing the sound. And it became like a whole new studio record. And the beauty of it is that there was no outside producer. There was no click track. There were no overdubs. It's just a raw recording of the band in our purest form. And you've got 4 of the greatest, most talented rock musicians of the time, right? You got Frankie Banelli on drums. I mean, Frankie's so much more than Quiet Riot. He's real heavily influenced by Bonham, now heavily influenced by Robert Plant. And we found Gary Hoey. We brought him in, and Gary's knowledge of theory and everything was off the hook. So it was like songwriting heaven. We could go anywhere. I could be like, that's a cool group, but let's try it in Lixolydian. He goes, oh, Lixolydian, you know. So he would know right away, and it was beautiful. And he's so talented, you know. And so you know, I had to actually dial him down, you know, lock him in a closet with a 412 cabinet and crank the heads, you know, to let him, you know, teach him how to, you know, live with crazy levels of feedback. And Rex is just a natural. And I think, if anything, on this record, being able to capture the groove and the chemistry between Frankie and Rex. Rex is a phenomenal bass player that just really got a raw deal. You know, he could have been one of the best. But anyways, this record captures that. And so I was able to take it and pull those songs together with Mike's brilliant ability on Pro Tools, and then started adding tracks. I contacted Gary. He put some tracks, you know, new tracks in there to fill out some of the songs that were just little shitty demos, and we took them from throwaways into songs, you know, and captured a lot of spontaneity. Like if you listen to the version of Turn It On this new record, we go into this jam at the end of it, just some spontaneous jam. And so I captured all of that in here, and I didn't edit anything out. So that was good. For the last 2 years, it was a real arduous process, but we completed it, and it's available now. It's the Real Heavy Bones. If you go on my website in the corner and you scroll down the menu, you'll see down there it says RHBV1. If you click on that, it'll give you a whole bio, a story about how the record was made. So that's what I've done in terms of music and recording. I'm also reissuing a lot of the other records. I have plans to get my master tapes from Universal, the original 2-inch tapes of the Kicked and Clawed record, and work with Garth Richardson, who is the original engineer on the record. And we would like to do a complete remix of the record. I own the band now, so I can pretty much do what I want, and the masters have reverted back to me. So that'll be a project that's coming. And when I do release that, I'll probably make it a double record set and put a lot of bonus tracks in there too, maybe some live. And you know, like I started saying at the beginning, the other thing that I'm working on. Well, I moved from the West Coast. Luckily, I think my place would have burned. You know, if I were still out there, and my heart goes out to all those people. Angelians are strong; they'll come back. But anyways, the other thing I'm working on is right behind you. You can see. I don't know if you can see, but I've got. I'm learning how to become a video editor here, and so I've got hundreds of hours of footage. And let me see if I can bring you into this a little bit. But the first thing I'm working on is I captured the entire 48 hours of making the monkey video.
Cool.
But
Cool.
this is one of the dollies that we're using. They're gonna sit on one of these chairs here, and they're gonna get footage of us, you know, up there. So this is the making of the Her Monkey video. We literally built the stage. We built the stage and shot the video all within 24 hours. It came out incredibly well. I'm working in DaVinci Resolve, and so it'll give us, you know, it's a beat behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, all that footage is going to be coming out in part in the rockumentary, and then, like I said, there's just going to be hundreds of hours of really entertaining clips and rare live footage that I'm going to build on a YouTube channel. So that, and you know, that's life right now. I do a lot of traveling. I like to get away, go to Costa Rica, go places like that. So.
Cool. Cool. Is there any chance on doing any live shows?
Oh yeah. Actually, there's a few options for that. Robert Sarzo and I have been talking about putting a band together, and when it's time, we're ready. I've also been talking to a keyboard player named Tommy Stevenson. We've wanted to play together. He was with the Eagles, and Joe Walsh. He was original Barnstorm keyboardist, and there's just all these amazing different musicians. But I don't. There's a chance Gary and I might do a couple shows together. I just have no plans for any of that yet. I'm really kind of focused on getting this documentary done, see where it leads me. Um, then, we will be doing live shows this summer. It's just Robert plays a lot with Simon Wright, drummer from Dio, and it's there's a lot of great talent that we can pull together as brothers and have a great band. That's more than just musicians playing together. We're friends. So we will. I'd like to be able to get out into Europe and into South America and go back and visit Japan, that kind of a thing. There's what I think what I'm on the horizon. What I'm really focused on is a really unique project that's very diverse, cross genre, and socio-politically important. Um, I'm working on a collaboration with a Russian artist. She's brilliant. I first found out about her work and I went right down the rabbit hole. And getting into her world is like literally like being in Alice in Wonderland. But her name is Yuldis, Uldus, and her name is Yuldis Bakhtiozina. And I can't put it in words. The level of genius that is that she exudes in all of her projects. Everything from photography with Vogue magazine to a lot of her photographic works being on consignment in museums, and her her staging theatrics, and now she's a filmmaker and making her own jewelry and whatever. She's just very prolific. And I was recording years ago. I was recording with a handful of guys in a apartment basement studio that was once Jimi Hendrix's. And when Jimmy left to go to New York, Frank Zappa came in and he recorded the Hot Rats record there. But it just really didn't have a name. It was just the basement of an apartment building Jimmy was living in the 60s. And he abandoned it. And a lot of artists came in there. Like I said, Frank came in and did Hot Rats. And they renamed the studio TTG. For some reason, I don't know. But then, I guess that was the room. Big Brother, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, or not Jimmy. Yeah, of course, Jimmy. But, Jim Morrison would go in there at night and just read poetry. It was a very low key room that you could record in. And so he would, that's where he would go and, read poetry and drink and whatever. But there's a great vibe, a great history there. And so Michael Mom, he, I think for Steppenwolf fame, but he came in and he bought the room and he put in an automated board. This was way back in like the 90s. Put in an automated board and he brought in Barry Sanders, who was the engineer for the Moody Blues. And at the time I was working with Bobby Womack, on his record Resurrection, and the Rolling Stones Voodoo Lounge record. And so all that was like a culmination of where my head was at, because I had left Heavy Bones, which was so contrived and controlled for me, into this huge bubble of just the genius. These are the masters. And so I was working with them, and I was really able to just relax and go back to my roots with. And what I found was, instead of like going back to my roots in R&B, I went back to a very eclectic place that was a culmination of all these influences in my life. And I ran into Michael Mom at the Rainbow, and he said, "Joel, you want to come in and test out the room?" He said, "You'd be the first artist in there." And I was like, yeah, did you change anything? Because we haven't changed anything. It's the same walls, the same ceiling from the 60s, everything, the whole vibe is there. And the whole vibe is there is an understatement. It was just a mind-boggling experience to work in that environment, because there were spirits in the room. I'm not, yeah. But we went in for 7 days with no songs written. And I called some friends, of course I had Takashi from Cats and Boots on guitar, who's phenomenal guitarist, artist, and way beyond what anything that anybody can imagine. He's a true artist. And another guy with the same level of artistry, Jimmy Zolo. Jimmy Zolo is out of San Diego, just a great, but brought in Phil Chen, who was a bass player on Jeff Beck's Blow by Blow. Phil came in, and then Larry Aberman, who was the drummer for the Vaughan Brothers, and so on and so forth. Spider Middleman on baritone sax, George Shelby from Rapture, on the tenor sax. So we just brought in an eclectic mix of people. We went in for 7 days, and we created music. And in the middle of the night, one night, Jimmy was tuning his 59 Strat, and I said, wow, something hit me. And I said, Jimmy, keep playing that. And I said, Barry, hit record. And my girlfriend at the time, she was really into classic literature and poetry, Antoine Artaud, all that kind of stuff. And so she was a stripper, had a body like a willow branch, tattooed from head to toe with jet black hair. But she was a genius when it came to poetry. And so she was sitting in the corner, and I don't know where it came from, but I was testing out a new microphone that the Manley guys brought in for me to test. It was this enormous thing. It looked like a 58 Buick, and just amazing in the way that made my voice sound. So something happened where that 4 a.m. TM kind of thing, that transcendental stream of consciousness, there was a song or a lyric sent through me. And so Jimmy was just following me on the guitar, playing these notes, and I was just singing as the words came to me. And then Jimmy went back and he goes, oh, that's really eerie. I'm going to put so he had an ES335 up by a Tweed amp, and he was doing this, this slide on the guitar. And that's all it is. It's 2 guitars and a vocal. And I called it Lily. And so Ashley said afterwards, I go, wow. I said, that was pretty wild, huh? She goes, it was genius. And she goes, you know what that song's about? I said, what? She goes, it's about the angel of death who takes children's souls to heaven. And she said, listen to it. And so if you go on my website, to make a long story short, click on the menu again and scroll down to Collaboration for Peace. It's a little thing, Collaboration for Peace. And so Yildiz and I decided we're going to make it Peace Through the Power of Art. And she gave me some images for my album cover that I'm gonna go ahead and master it and press it finally. And then from there, we want to make an extended video. She wants to create a film around that song that's eventually going to be a museum exhibit. And so, but the basis of the film in bilingual, Russian narration, English, maybe some other, but it's going to be targeted towards children who are victims of violence and abuse, and primarily, victims of war and things like that. So the song itself talks to children who have passed on due to abuse, and the angel's there, and he says, "Take my hand, it's not over," and he takes them to heaven. So we want to build that consensus around that song, and the song's, Yildiz calls it, she says, it's not a song, it's a work of art, so it was very stream of consciousness. But eventually that's my plan. And once we complete the video and get it in the museums, I'll let it run its course. We're going to do a sound and vision. Well, we'd like to do a sound and vision theatrical where the staging and the artwork is all Yildiz's production and creations, and put to my music, and maybe we'll create an additional soundtrack around it. But we think that it would be great to promote it through cross-genre avenues outside of music, like Vogue magazine for fashion, and fine art world through museums. And that would be a way to be able to make a socio-political impact, to bring attention towards child abuse. And who knows, maybe we can spin off a charity foundation off the efforts. But I also have friends in Vegas who are basically Vegas royalty, and they have connections to be able to, give it a home there under the dome or something. Who knows? But that's kind of my perspective, my vision. And along the way, somewhere, I do want to do live shows, and I'd like to make a new record. So something
Good.
heavy, something real heavy.
Yeah. We've got a question from Lisaboo. She asks, is there someone you would love to play with that you haven't before?
Yeah, absolutely, David Gilmour, um, and Jimmy Page. Uh, yeah, my dream band. I'd have three guitar players: David Gilmour, Jimmy Page, and Brian May. Um, you know, yeah, I mean, who I haven't played with already. I mean, there's always. I mean, I think there's always room to dream, but um, I've been pretty blessed with people that I've been fortunate enough to sit in with. Been pretty blessed with my cohorts. Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin and Steven Tyler of Aerosmith. I mean, I bonded with them as a lead singer. I don't know if that counts, because as lead vocalist, Jack Russell and Stephen Piercy and all the guys, you bond with them. But I guess might be kind of cool. I think to have a band with a couple of lead singers. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, yeah.
you know, I actually have a video segment in here that I'm going to be putting out, and it's kind of funny because it's got we're on stage at the Roxy, and it's I'm with Steve Lukather from Toto, and then Randy Jackson from American Idol. You didn't really know he's a bass player, so he used to be a rocker with his hair mousse stuff and everything. James Kotek, and Vinny Appice on drums. So we had two drummers, and we had two bass players, and we had Stevie Salas and Steve Lukather, guys up there on stage, Rudy Sarzo, everybody. So I actually have a video of us, just rocking out at the Roxy doing Cream songs, Sunshine of Your Love and all that. And it was just really interesting to play with, they have two drummers and, 90 guitar players and everything. So, and a couple of lead singers. I think Kelly Keeling was on the other microphone Kelly from Hurricane. And so, yeah, it's always fun to dream. If I could go back and sing with anybody, it would be Van Halen with Eddie. Just there's magic there.
Yeah, yeah, cool. We've got another question from Aussie Ann 2025. She asks, would you play with another band? And if so, which one?
Would I play with another band? And if so, which one? I never really thought of that. Like I said before, I think that I'm a standalone artist. I'm all about expression. So to join a band, let's see, I'll entertain this question. I can't think of any bands out there maybe Pearl Jam. Maybe Pearl Jam. Brilliant artists. If anything ever happened to Eddie, I'd be right there ready to jump in. I just think that those guys, Goss and those guys, they really brought back an element of rock and roll that just needed to come back. The tones, the raw tones. Alice in Chains, maybe. I mean, those guys. Steve Cantrell. He used to tell me all about the different settings and different types of amps that he uses, this and that. But the sounds that those guys got are what excite me. I would never join another band, to receive fame or or money or whatever. I would do it solely for what I feel. Just it's got to be true to the music.
Yeah, true, true. Yeah, so is there any new merchandise coming out for the new album? Going to be for the re-release?
Yes, please go to my store and buy as many T-shirts and posters as you can. I gotta make my store profitable somehow. Like I said, I'm not a salesman, but if anybody out there is interested in helping me market Then we'll create all the merch you want. I just got done making up. I found an old backstage, a tour pass, an all access pass that I wore on one of the tours, and so I'm gonna make duplicates of that, and I'm gonna probably sell just a limited number of them as lifetime after show passes. So any show that I'm playing, if you have that pass, then and they can't be duplicated because we're gonna number them, and then your name is gonna go to that number, and you're gonna have to show an ID if you're using the pass, because otherwise they'll just get mass produced, and who knows.
Yeah. Cool. 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 So, um, where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, that's another thing. I'm really weak. I'm my publicist and my manager, but they always give me shit because you're not on. You got to do the band account. So you can go to Instagram. I put up something called the Cats and Boots Official. I don't really maintain my social media sites because I try. The digital world for me. I mean, it's nice to have that connection, but I would say the best place to reach me is my Facebook. It's Joel Ellis, and I check in on that maybe once or twice every couple of weeks now, um, and occasionally I read those messengers. You just get so overwhelmed with them sometimes. It takes up so much time out of your life to go in. But I like, and I can't just open them and read them and go on. It's like I always feel like I want to answer and bring it to the people. But if Joel Ellis on Facebook and my Instagram. So write this down. You got the little typey thing. It's Joel Joel underscore Smokin' Opies. So SMOKINOPIES Smokin' Opies underscore Ellis. So Joel Smokin' Opies Ellis. You'll find it there. Smokin' Opies, what that is that's an old Bob Seger record. So smoking opies back, when I was a kid meant, you smoke other people's smoking opies. So you don't ever have your own cigarettes. That way it makes you feel like I'm not a smoker, but yeah. But yeah, other than that, my website, go to my website and subscribe. And then you'll get on our mailing list. And I got some great people working for, Jim, Joel Ellis Music, Jim. And Gem admin. So you can also reach out to me at admin@joelellismusic.com, and my guys will get the messages to me. And then I'm pretty excited about something I'm going to stay dedicated towards. In fact, I've got a little team ready to market it. Is my YouTube channel, and I'm creating a YouTube channel. It's not out yet, but I'm going to make all new videos out of proprietary video footage, and I'm going to make all new music videos for all my songs, and we're probably going to put probably like a little maybe commentary after some of them, Randy and I, the drummer of Cats and Boots, or maybe Gary and I from Heavy Bones, we'll do something in there. And then I've got that whole channel, the reality channel of all those clips I shot in Hollywood, so it's all nostalgic stuff. And so when that's launched, you'll see it on my Facebook page, and you'll see it, through the subscribership. But you'll find out firsthand what I'm doing if you just go to my website and subscribe, joelellismusic.com. Is that a shameless plug, Al?
No, no, definitely not. So, this is probably going to be sort of like my final question before we start wrapping things up. So, any advice for people who want to basically become a musician?
Who want to do what?
Who want to become any advice for who want to become a musician?
Don't do it. Well, yeah. I mean, my best advice is to try to learn as many instruments as you can and how they influence each other. I don't think learning how to read music is all that important. The Beatles never did, and not too many people can actually read music unless you plan on going into an orchestra, where it's important to know that stuff. But It's just me talking from my point of view. Is feel the music in your gut. Try to learn as much theory as you can about scales, keys you're playing in is important in this, and then forget about it, and just play by ear. But I would say definitely, man, don't pigeonhole yourself to one particular type of music. Figure things out, and most of all, I think the big problem today is that new musicians, I don't think they dig deep enough back into music. Go back historically, um, just go back and listen to how music has progressed through the generations. I mean, if you're a drummer, go back and listen to the 1920s recording of "Sing Sing Sing," with Benny Goodman. You'd be like, Benny who? But you go back and listen to Gene Krupa and Sing Sing Sing, and it'll change your world as far as it being a drummer. If you're a singer, go back and listen to Billie Holiday, or Etta James, or if you're if a guitar player, go back to the 1910s or 1920s and listen to Django Reinhardt, or Robert Johnson. Really spread yourself out and listen. And I think that's the main thing, is to live with music. Really explore music, and not just influences that are popular in the English world, but go back and listen to tribal, indigenous music. Listen to those. I mean, Led Zeppelin did it. Midway through their career, they shifted from the blues, straight over into Moroccan influences, and look at Kashmir, things like that. And as they were traveling, the Beatles did it. They, midway through their career, they went and met the Maharaja and came home with a sitar. you know. But I mean, I think that's what it takes, because just explore music with your gut. Don't worry so much about learning to read music. I don't know. I think, especially in terms of modern music, it can kind of be bullshit. I don't mean to say music theory is bullshit, but I mean, David Bowie said it the best, and this is a good thought to keep in mind. When you're becoming a musician and a songwriter, is that there's a difference between an artist and a musician. And a musician is going to do just that. They're going to learn their instrument, and they're going to, even dazzle you with what they can do or what they can imitate. But an artist is somebody who's going to give you sounds that you hadn't heard before. They're going to say things that are going to touch your soul or make you think. It's, provocative. And like David Bowie said, an artist is somebody who can drop their instrument down the steps and make you feel something. And, so I wouldn't really worry about being perfect. I would worry about finding the tones, the sound, and just letting it out and be yourself. There's no
So good.
rules. There's no rules to making great. I mean, listen to Maisie Starr. She's brilliant. You get lost in music like that, but it's real simple. I mean, she's not like she's doing it. She's not like Rush, or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sound advice. That sound advice. We're going to be starting wrapping things up. So, Joe, any final words before we do? Before we go?
No, I mean, if there's any more answers you want me to answer, I'll keep the answers short.
Yeah, it's what time is it now? It's getting for 11 o'clock here in the UK.
So half your listeners are asleep by now. Like,
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we're going to start wrapping things up. So yeah. So Joe, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a total pleasure. It's been a
yeah,
total
man.
pleasure.
Yeah, ditto.
Uh,
Likewise.
yeah. So guys, for you who've been watching, thank you so much for coming to join us. Um, Go check out Joel on his website, joelellis.com.
Joel
You'll
Ellis
find
music.
Joel Ellis Music. Yeah, thank you for that. Joel Ellis Music. And yeah, look, so, God, I can't speak now. So, yeah, go check out his website, and yeah, you find some brilliant stuff over there. And Joe, thank you so much for this. It's been a total pleasure.
Yeah, well, let's do it again, Al. I mean,
Oh yeah,
I
definitely.
thank you so much for having me on your show and getting me out to your listeners. And so I'm available anytime you want, my brother.
Yeah, thank you. Most definitely, most
All right.
definitely.
Peace.
Right, guys. Right, guys. Until next time. Catch you all later.
All right.